shows up, there better be some source material. There better be like a document that we can then go and verify the document. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes people give us information, and it's not publishable by itself, but it sets us off in a direction. Mm-hmm. It tells us what happened, so then we can go and investigate. Everything is a case-by-case basis, and I think it's interesting to look at the way. And a lot of this is sort of like I said, I don't have a hard news background, so I've been learning, and I've actually been gaining a lot of respect for a lot of the standards that I think have gotten codified in journalism, which I didn't have a lot of respect for when I began. There's like rules about getting multiple verification. There are things that only one person knows about, and it's true, and then there are other things that 3 people can tell you about, but it's bullshit, And prioritizing on the record, there are things where you could find people on the record to lie about, and where it would be very difficult to get 3 people off the record to tell you, information that corroborates different accounts of the story. So there is no one formula for me, because ultimately what you're trying to arrive at is truth. Like you want to publish stories that are accurate and that are going to stand up. But I understand why best practices have evolved in newsrooms, as especially as staff gets bigger, and you're not just kind of going on your own news judgment, which is fallible. Then it's good to have systems that you put stories through to test them, to poke them. So, I'm reluctant to ever publish we will never publish from an anonymous source besides the following scenarios. Every story has its own scenarios. But we try to publish what we are sure is true.
In the past week, Canadaland has addressed diversity or lack thereof in newsrooms across Canada. And then there's the Alison Smith story where she wasn't able to report in Queen's Park. And how much of this, or why do you feel like you're attracted to these? Why do you feel like you're attracted to these stories, or sort of why do you feel like these stories are the ones that come up more often that you report on? The things that sort of perpetuate the view that people have of the media or the media.
Well, some of these stories come to us, and we've sort of become the accountability office, so that when someone like Alison Smith has had enough of it, to give a little bit of context, this is an independent reporter in Ontario who has started her own entrepreneurial effort covering the legislature, and the press gallery won't let her in. They won't let her become a member of the Queen's Park Press Gallery. She's tried for 4 years. And they'll always be very ambiguous. Why? Is it because she's digital? Is it because she's subscriber-based? Or do they not think her journalism's good enough? And they've insinuated, and she's never gotten a straight answer. And at a certain point, she said, to hell with this. I'm going to go talk about this. And she was on the show, and then it's incredible to me how institutions that are so resistant to change internally, as soon as there's a poke from outside, so what do? They had an emergency meeting today to review her case, which I actually have to check in and find out what happened with that. So it's I try not to get caught up in outcomes. We're not trying to save the world. But it really is exciting when you see that your reporting directly leads to policies being changed. So that's a story that came to us. We do seek out these stories as well, because I think that's one of the biggest issues right now in trying to hold up a critical, lens, to turn a critical lens on the media is the first thing you notice is that it is wildly unrepresentative of the public that it is supposedly representing and advocating for. So we'll do things that newspapers call them crusades. It's not like a news story, but we'll go and send surveys to all the newspapers and say, will you tell us about your diversity numbers? Which is something that happens routinely in the United States. And Vicky Machama did that project for us and approached 18 newspapers, and only 3 got back to her. So we're not going to talk about that. We don't keep that kind of information. When she got an answer at all, which most just didn't respond to her. So for us, that's just sort of like a core competence thing for if you're going to be talking about problems in the Canadian media. That's we're going to hammer away at that consistently as long as it's true.
So Canadaland runs on a crowdfunding model, as many people know, and as you described. How has that influenced the way you report, given the difficulty to attract advertisers and sort of the volatility of that? And how does that leak into your reporting? And does it make stories like the Globe and Mail piece, or the piece about the Globe and Mail with women editors leaving the Globe and Mail, does it make pieces like that more prone, where you're sort of, you're looking to secure the story, even if someone comes in after and is able to poke holes into it?
Okay, so because the primary source of revenue for Canadaland is people directly funding it through Patreon, at patreon.com/Canadaland, we have, I think, a unique level of accountability where, you know, a newspaper, if they fall down really hard, you know, so the Toronto Star publishes a story suggesting that the HPV vaccine is bullshit and it could kill you, okay? That's a disaster of a story. That is absolutely without scientific basis, and it's fear-mongering, and it has real consequences. As a result, there's probably people who aren't going to get that vaccine, or could get HPV and could get ovarian cancer, right? It's a bad piece of journalism. They completely recanted, apologized, tore it down, and then they wake up the next morning and they publish the paper again. You know, they can live on. We could not survive a story like that. If we published a story that was that wrong. So the example you give up is the worst mistakes I've made as a reporter on a story that in its essence was true, that female employees of the Globe and Mail at very high ranking levels were leaving the newspaper in rapid succession, and they lost 4 senior people very quickly. But I made a egregious reporting error where I had been told, well, the 4 women who just left, they're not going to talk with you. So you're going to have to build this story through other sources. And I went out and I got lots of other sources, and I felt really confident that I'd done a great job. And somewhere in my draft, I had, like, as a placeholder, you know, the 4 women who were the subject of this story, we reached out to comment and they didn't give it to me. And in fact, I'd only reached out to 2 of them, you know, and I couldn't find contact information for the other 2, and I got caught up in the other sources, and it was a complete lapse. And as soon as the story was published, there were women saying, this story says that you reached out to me, and I didn't give you comment. You never reached out to me. And that sinking feeling that you published something that just isn't true. And it ended up being true, because then I talked to them and they didn't want to talk to me, so it turned out to be true that they didn't want to give comment, and who could blame them after that? We corrected the mistake. But the crowdfunding dipped instantly. People were very angry about that. I understand why. I mean, supposedly